How I built an androgen dense physique. Let's get into it. So as you can see for yourself, I used to be very skinny and I built a very impressive physique. Dense shoulders, upper chest, traps, lean, so on and so forth. So I'm going to dive deep into how I accomplished it. So let's get into it. So how I built an androgen dense physique. So what is an androgen dense physique? It's then dense in androgen receptors. So androgen receptors are receptors which take on androgens. And androgens, things like testosterone, DHT, androgens bind to androgen receptors and the androgen receptors come into effect. So like muscle growth, for instance. So high androgen receptor density. So first you need to have the right amount of androgen receptors, because you see guys out there, they take steroids and they still don't look impressive because they have low androgen receptor density. And even though they have high androgens, they have low androgen receptor density. But then you see other guys who just take a little bit and they just explode because they have high androgen receptor density, and all that, those androgens, all those hormones bind and come into effect. So your upper chest, traps, shoulders, upper back, neck, you know, that V-taper which women are biologically attracted to. Just like you, as a man, you're attracted to a female with nice hips because that tells you she's healthy. It tells you that she's hormonally sound. She's good in that sense. So dense androgen receptor, that's what an androgen dense physique is. Low body fat, high androgen receptors, high testosterone, and well-developed physique. So my starting point, in this picture, I weighed around 58 kilograms, so about 127 pounds at 6'1", 185 centimeters. I was super skinny and weak, low testosterone, low androgen receptors. Like, this is not a physique of someone who has good genetics. Like you see people like Ronnie Coleman, when before they started, they already looked like they lift. So when I started, you can see I'm not some genetic specimen. When I started, I couldn't bench the 20 kilo bar in the gym. I remember I used to hide in the corners of the gym because I was embarrassed with 7.5 kilo dumbbells and I could barely get them up. So that's where I started. And this is where I got to. So when people say, oh, it's genetics. If it was genetics, I would have went into the gym and I could already bench a lot, my overhead press, but I couldn't. I built it properly. So my starting point, low androgen receptors, low testosterone, always got sick, tired, demotivated, anxious, very shy, introverted. And then my finish point. So at my peak, I got to 95 kilos, 210 pounds, at 6'2", so 189 centimeters. My deadlift is 280 kilos. I haven't deadlifted in about 2 to 3 years because I got so strong at it so quickly. I don't focus on it anymore. Same with my squat. But my bench and overhead press was always weak, so I stopped doing these and I just focus on my upper body. So I got my overhead press to 100 kilos, so 4. My bench to 150 kilos. And things like one arm pull-ups I can do now. So for instance, so like here, example of me doing 220 on a deadlift for 8 reps. 3. So high dense androgen receptors, you see the shoulders, upper chest, still lean. You see guys out there, they're strong, they have a lot of muscle, but they lack that body fat. They lack good body fat percentage. 200 for 12. You see one arm pull-ups. You don't see guys weighing over 200 pounds doing one arm pull-ups. That's unheard of. That is unheard of. You see guys benching 150, but they can barely do bodyweight pull-ups. So that's the goal. That's what I focus on. Being super strong, because you can be super strong in the gym, but you can be like heavy. I remember I went through a phase I was super heavy. You can barely do a pull-up. It's just difficult to walk around. Just standing for too long is difficult because it hurts your back and this. No, you want to be lean, aesthetic, high androgen receptor density, low body fat. The reason why you want to have low body fat is having body fat as a man makes you look feminine because it gives you a rounded looking face. You look soft. Men are not supposed to be soft. And high body fat percentage equals more aromatase enzyme. So if you do boost your testosterone levels naturally, all that testosterone is going to be converted into estrogen. So that's why you want to get really strong, focus on the right muscles, relative strength, like compared to your weight. If I weigh 100 kilos and I do 100 kilos for 5 reps versus someone who's 80 kilos and does 100 for 5 reps, or even does 90 for 5 reps, the guy that benched the 90 is stronger than the one that benched 100 relative strength compared to his body weight. Like I mentioned, you see guys, they bench a lot, okay, do a pull-up. They can barely do a pull-up. Don't even ask them for weighted pull-ups because that's just rare. You don't see guys doing weighted pull-ups or one-arm pull-ups, okay? Because it's easy to just max out your bench, squat and deadlift because you can just get very heavy and do those things. But the true strength comes out when you can do weighted calisthenics, weighted pull-ups, especially weighted dips and things like that, because that's true strength. That's true muscular strength rather than gaining a lot of weight. The heavier you are, the more you're going to bench. Do you ever see guys who are higher body fat percentage, you just weigh a lot more? When they start going to the gym, they can already bench a lot, even though they never benched in their life. So that's where it comes from. You want to build true muscular strength. One-arm pull-ups, low body fat, high testosterone, high androgen receptor density. So mistakes I made. I followed common advice. So as you know, I was certified, I still am, in personal training and nutrition. So I followed all the advice that I learned, and I did not get any results. And that's when, if you know my story, that's when it all started. I was confused because I knew the pinnacle of information in regards to training, nutrition. I was certified to train other people. But how am I supposed to train other people if I'm still not getting the results I want? I focused on the shiny objects rather than principles. I didn't understand hormonal optimization. I overtrained and did too much volume. I program and diet hopped. Because when you're at that state, you're very emotional. You see something new, you emotionally start doing things. You do this, you do a bit of that. You see new supplement coming out. How does that make sense? How is something that they're like new tactic that just was created meant to help you? Guys have had high testosterone throughout all centuries. There's nothing new under the sun. You need to realize what the guys did back in the days. If you have an individual who from back in the days was born whatever, he's 25, he has 1,000 nanograms per deciliter, you ask him, how do you get to 400 nanograms per deciliter? He'll start sleeping less, stressing himself, overtraining, eating bad foods, doing all the things that you're probably doing, and then he'll get 400 nanograms per deciliter. So then you ask him, how are you going to, I want you to go back to 1,000 nanograms per deciliter. What you are doing is you're trying to add things, or maybe if I do this supplement, maybe this diet. No, you need to remove those blockers. You need to have self-awareness and ask yourself, why am I experiencing this now? Low testosterone is a symptom. Excess body fat is a symptom of something. You need to realize that. So then you have the mistakes I made. Foundations were all wrong. Made short-term plans and emotionally changed my plan. another thing I want to mention, in my Reclaim Mastermind, I had a question that someone asked me. It was something about balding. Okay, there you go. So it's a question about balding, whatever. And same thing, ask yourself, why are you balding? Then remove those blockers, track everything you do. You'll be able to pinpoint those things. It's really evaluating, okay, if you're balding, why are you balding? You ask yourself that. And if you track everything like I do with my clients, it's like, whoa, I never seen that before. I see a lot of guys into testosterone optimization and they never track. And they think they're doing this, they need to do this. And I put everything on paper and they can see clearly this, that, this. Once that's fixed, you'll feel so much better. What gets measured gets accomplished. So the success formula that I use to accomplish an androgen dense physique. So I mastered natural testosterone optimization. I really fine-tuned that. If you want to chop down a tree and you have 5 hours, you're going to spend the first 3 hours sharpening the axe. There was a study done in which there was 3 groups. One group trained and took steroids. Another group just trained naturally, and another group took steroids only. And there was also a control group which didn't do anything. After a couple of weeks, the results came in. Obviously, the group that trained and took steroids had the most muscle growth, but the group that took steroids only and did not train had more gains than the group who trained naturally. That just comes to show how important hormonal optimization comes into play. And people disregard it. They're trying to do this and that. You need to come from the right place of, you need to optimize your hormonal levels, and you cannot be listening to the advice that is online, the common advice, because that's advice to steroid users. Let me give you an example. Let's say you do the bro split. You train on a Monday and you're taking steroid. You do chest day. Protein synthesis, which is muscle growth, spikes for 7 days. Hence why the bro split comes into play, the muscle split. But if you're a natural, protein synthesis spikes from 24 to 48 hours. So you're ready to train that muscle group 1 to 2 days later. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and every second day, you can keep reaping the results. But if you follow the bro split, you're going to lose out on the results. And I can give you many, many more examples. But that's just one of them, how you cannot follow the advice online. And another thing, you see a lot of guys they have a lot of muscle, but they're balding. They have like patches under their eyes. They look sick. They're like pale. They look like there's something wrong. You always see them like super bloated, or like they're always gain weight or lose it. That's not normal. Because building muscle in and of itself, and you see those guys, they have muscle, but don't be deceived. They have big chests, maybe nice back, but there's something about them. It doesn't look right. Because they don't have high androgen receptor density. You can have 2 people with the same amount of muscle, but if one packs it on in the right places, your shoulders, upper chest, neck, they will look so much more aesthetically pleasing and so much better versus a guy who's just strong, has muscle. Because building muscle is a adaptation. Like your body just needs to build muscle if you're training the proper way, because it's for you to survive. Progressive overload. It's for survival. If you're going to the gym and you're not making gains, you're probably programming is off or something like that. But you can still build muscle if you have super low testosterone levels, but it's not optimal. It's going to take longer. And if you do build muscle, it's just not going to look right on you. My foundations were wrong, made short-term plans, and emotionally changed my plans. So I'll create a plan this week, and I'll change it in a week because I've seen something new. So the success formula: mastered testosterone. I trained properly, focusing on androgen receptor density. I stuck with solid foundations and principles. I logically created long-term plans and tracked everything. And I rather undertrain by 10% than overtrain by 1. Because you're overtraining by 1% and you do that consistently, that builds up. And that's where guys have low testosterone, because over a period of a couple of weeks, months, they're under-recovered. That's why you see young guys, they're balding, they're anxious and things like that, because they're overtraining and they're watching these guys, influencers who train 6 times a week, 2 hours in the gym, and they take copious amount of pre-workout and they have low testosterone. This is why. What gets measured gets accomplished. You need to measure everything. You need to hit the right strength standards. You need to get strong. If you go to me, oh, why is my chest small? And I ask you, oh, I'm training chest this, that. I'm doing that. I'm following this workout plan. And I'm like, how much do you bench? Oh, I bench 40 kilos for 10 reps. That's why. You can do all these shiny objects. But objectively speaking, muscle is a byproduct of strength. If you go from benching 60 kilos to 140 kilos for reps, there's no way your chest won't grow. And it's simple like that. It's not complicated. So yeah, that being said, hopefully you got some value out of this video. And yeah, if you have any question, drop them down below and I'll see you later. Peace.